welcome to the podcast, Nikon's Ultimate Podcast. How are you doing?
Quite excited to see how this goes, and hopefully I don't say anything I shouldn't, but yeah.
We've got the beep button just in case.
Oh, okay, can I rewind? All right, fair enough.
I'm joking, you can't do that on that. Anyway,
okay.
It's so great to have you, man. Your work is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm going to start it off with getting your Instagram handles right in the beginning so people can reference you on that. So
and then I can leave right after.
Then what happens is they can check out your work because it's absolutely phenomenal. I love following you. So give them your social handles if that's okay, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Sure. So my name is Yobel. So thankfully that turned into my Instagram handle being Yobel Prize. It's like Nobel Prize, but with the Y, one word. And you can find me on Instagram. And as of most recently, I've been pursuing YouTube. So if you can follow me on YouTube, that will be my number one ask.
Like and subscribe, definitely.
Oh yeah, everything. Comment, likes. Yeah, exactly. You know the drill.
Absolutely love it, but it's great to have you here, and it's great to catch up. I mean, we met many years ago. Loved your journey of where you're going, and your work is just phenomenal. So now tell me, I just want to know a little bit more. Well, the viewers, let's give them a little bit of an intro into where your photography began, your love for art and creation, and then where it grew from there.
Sure thing. So for me, I would say in terms of photography, it started back in 2016 is when I first bought my camera, went out on a trip and started shooting with it. In terms of when the passion started, I guess it would be roughly within a year prior to that. I'd been starting to travel a little bit more. I was fresh out of university and trying to spend all the money that I was earning. And I started doing some solo backpacking trips. I went to Costa Rica, and there was just happened to be so many amazing sights there. But the one that stuck in my mind was I was just walking alone on the beach, as one does, right around sunset, and then all of a sudden the water just receded all the way to the horizon, which I didn't know was possible. But it left like a thin sheet of water, just enough that it could reflect the sky. So I think you know where I'm going with this, but basically I had this perfect sunset. It finished raining, clouds were everywhere, and it basically just made this beautiful tapestry that looked like infinite in every direction. So at that point I had my amazing iPhone 5, I think it was. Let's go with the iPhone 5. It's one of those early single-digit numbers. And I just snapped a photo. I looked at it. I was in awe, but I was like, man, I really need something better than this if I really want to share with people this kind of view. So then I committed to getting a camera, and from there it just kind of went from travel to travel, shooting, point and click, learning, making mistakes, shooting in JPEG when I should shoot RAW. All the mistakes you would imagine, I did it, but I loved it.
And tell me, what was your first camera, your first Nikon camera?
First Nikon camera was the D810. I bought a used one. I would say it was probably about a year to 2 years into my photography kind of passion journey. The first camera I started with was a Sony A6000.
Okay,
it was like a beginner starter kit. I didn't know what I was doing. I had a budget, and I was just trying to buy whatever works. And I loved it. You know, I learned a lot, but at some point I realized as I wanted this to become a bit more professional, I wanted professional gear. The D810 was, it was perfect. You know, this is, what was it, maybe like 6, 7, 8 years back? Actually, 8 years back almost. I'm getting old now. But it was perfect for what I was doing. I mainly focus on shooting content when I'm traveling. So it could be any subject. For me, it was just, I want to have a camera that's capable of capturing, whether it's still subjects, action subjects, nature, add filters to it, whatever I need to do. It gives me something that I feel proud of and I can work with. So D810, then I went to a D850, to a Z6, the first one, Z9, and now the Z6 III.
Oh, I love it. We're going to be talking, yeah?
You'd be proud I'm saying Z now instead of Z, so the American side of me is disappearing.
It's so difficult for me because there's such a mixed, relation to it. So Z or Z or Z. So
or Nikon or Nikon. Yeah, it depends on my mood. Yeah, I hear you.
Exactly. But now tell me, okay, so you went into it. What do you classify your work in? Are you travel photography, documentary style? Because you shoot across the board, but a lot of it is travel, obviously.
Yeah, it should be an easy question with an easy answer type thing, but I would say I'm still kind of figuring things out. There's a good lesson in my life in terms of trying to figure out what am I passionate about. I used to think I'm passionate about photography, and then from there you go pick what you need to. I realized there's a layer above that, which is I'm passionate about traveling. And then a layer above that was I'm passionate about storytelling. And once I kind of identified that as the primary of this kind of tree structure, then I realized I don't really care what I'm shooting as long as it's telling stories or sharing stories that I think hopefully people will enjoy. So I like to tell people I'm just trying to share the best of the world with the rest of the world through my lens. And oftentimes the best of the world you can find by traveling. I've been focusing a lot on wildlife, I would say, in the past 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
But I don't like to say that I'm a wildlife-only photographer. I love
Yeah.
just capturing moments.
Yeah.
And to your point, I think kind of this documentary style, it has been something I've been enjoying in terms of learning the craft. How do you capture the still moments in between, not always the action? How do you find a story? How do you film people? How do you film nature, the culture, and then how do you kind of weave a story between all of that?
You know what? A lot of the time people try and put photographers into boxes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come to me and say to me, so, like, what type of photographer are you? And I'm kind of like, well, I'm a storyteller, I'm a content creator. I don't stigmatize myself into a box and say, I'm portrait, or I'm this, or I'm that. And I think there has to be that kind of option where you don't have to be a wedding photographer or whatever, because it's photography, it's an art form. So photography is an art. I mean, and you're doing beautifully. I saw your latest post as one. I see you starting to engage and telling the story, which I absolutely love, and your work is phenomenal. So you've traveled a lot. I mean, how many countries are you on now that you've traveled to?
I say basically around 60 countries, but I don't like really keep track. I just know it's roughly in that ballpark.
Around 60 countries.
Like, sometimes people count countries as in like, hey, did you touch down the airport and leave? And it's check, but I've been in one country, Uganda. It's my current favorite. I've been there like 3 or 4 times, 4 to 5 times now, but I still feel like there's so much to explore. So sorry, I'm making it very philosophical, but let's just say 60 countries.
No, but I love that. And Uganda, why?
That's a lot of different reasons, but I think the main one is the gorillas. So that was the main draw. And I'd been to Rwanda before, and I just reached out to a few companies trying to see which company would give the best rates, the best experiences. And I really connected with the owner of this one company called Karingo Safaris.
Cool.
And we put together a nice package. I explored. I realized there's way more than gorillas there, by the way. And I just need to keep coming back. And thankfully, I was starting to bring people with me on these trips so they can experience it, and then hopefully we all kind of learn from each other, especially photographers.
I love that. So do you actually do guided tours?
I started about a year ago, let's say. I left the corporate world recently in the past year and a half, and now I'm burning all my money and time doing this, whatever this is, to your point of like not being in a box, but it is really meant to just be able to travel the world, find those stories, bring people with me if possible, share the inspirations of just why I love what I do. If I can hopefully bring people along with me and they all improve, that's a win-win.
I love that. The nice thing and the beautiful thing about your work, and you can actually see it in your work, is that there's a lot of depth to your images and what you create, which I absolutely love. A lot of the time when you start becoming a tour guide to a certain degree, or I don't know how to explain it, but someone that's teaching people, what tends to happen is the work starts getting flat, and you're trying to just get the shot to put it on your Instagram, where every shot that I've seen that you've done is just been a lot of thought put into it. There's a great story behind it, and I love that. So don't ever lose that.
Awesome.
It's
all right, well,
brilliant.
I appreciate that.
No. So tell me, when you're planning your next excursion, what goes into it? Like, do you just like suddenly go, oh, I haven't been here, or you spin the map and you go there, or what happens?
I've done both. Not so much the latter, I guess, but generally speaking, it's just something might spark, right? There might be that one viral video you see of some animal or some location, and then it's just a question of, oh, is that the right season to go? Do I have the money? Check the bank account. But yeah, generally speaking, I don't really jump right into saying I have a checklist of things I want to see in life. It's just more if there seems to be an opportunity and the timing works out. So, for instance, last summer, I had seen some viral videos of this horse ranch in Zimbabwe, in the middle of nowhere of all places. But I was really getting into horses at the time, especially shooting it in Dubai and the desert. And it just felt like a good way to get some wild animal shots, essentially. And so I reached out to the owner of the Instagram account, and it just turned into like, oh, why don't you come visit? Spend as much time as you want, shoot the animals, and it just turned into an opportunity. So if those kind of moments happen, that's great. Otherwise, nowadays, it is really trying to find those unique stories. So it doesn't have to be wildlife based. It could just be like, I would love to, for instance, I just learned about there's a tribe in Mongolia where they actually domesticate reindeers of all animals.
Wow.
And there was one viral video I'd seen where you can literally see one of them riding the reindeer. And that just stuck with me. So I have a contact in Mongolia. I've been a couple times, and I'm thinking maybe I'll go there just to maybe spend a couple weeks with this tribe, if possible, So we'll see.
And do you like fully immerse yourself when you go there? Do you go rural or do you do the glamping? Either which way is fine.
Both. I like both.
Yeah.
I do miss my air conditioning. I miss not having to deal with bugs all the time. So that always draws me back to going home. But yeah, I try to immerse myself as much as I can. I'm still relatively young. I still am relatively healthy. So I might as well make the most of it, go out there. But, as an example, I was just in the desert. This is not like an international trip, but even in Dubai, I am still an expat. I'm still learning. And I was able to spend an overnight trip with some falconer. And he's got maybe around a dozen falcons. And, we stayed overnight. They cooked a feast for us. I learned about how you have to eat with your right hand as more of a Muslim tradition. But the guy next to me, the Emirati, he handed me a squishy thing, told me eat it. I was like, okay, what was it? He's like, oh, that was the eye of the goat that you just had. I was like, oh, that's great. And then he's like, okay, now watch this. And they cracked open the skull of the goat's head using part of the goat's jaw. So that was a little bit morbid.
What? Yeah.
But gave me some of the brain and I ate it. So,
good.
There were things that I thought I would never do, but there is a point where you realize, especially if you're documenting this, you feel like you should immerse yourself. You should try to understand or empathize or feel like you're part of that culture to really explore it in depth, I'd say.
I love these stories. And really, again, your work is stunning and I love the way you go into it. Tell me, when you go traveling, how do you choose your gear and what's your number one go-to camera and lens? If you had to have, let's say, one, but let's first start off. Okay, so you've told us how you find the concept and the idea. Now you go into your gear because you've got a whole host of gear. Which one do you choose? Why do you choose go into that?
Yeah, so if it's wildlife-based, usually the Z9. It's just the one I don't even think about. Obviously, I have to bring the best with me. And depending on the type of wildlife we're saying, I'm fortunate enough to have a 400 millimeter f2.8 in my possession.
Beautiful.
My bank doesn't thank me, but the shoots definitely are amazing. And so that one has to fit in my bag somehow, some way. We'll get it through carry-on, security, everything. So I would say that is my go-to necessarily, but at the same time, I've recently been shooting. In the past few months, I've been on maybe 5 or 6 country trips, and I've been shooting with the Z6 III, and I've quickly realized that is becoming my go-to lens. Partially because of the form factor is slightly smaller, it fits in my kind of day-to-day bag, but the quality of especially as I've gotten into more videography over the past 2 years or so, it shoots amazing quality. Like, you wouldn't notice a difference between what I used to shoot and what I shoot now. If anything, it might be better as I'm improving. But that's become the camera. The lens I've been enjoying. If I had to take one, 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8 is a good one for the versatility, especially as I'm trying to do more filming and vlogging style. The 70 to 200 2.8 was my main favorite for years, before the 400 took over that spot. Okay. But I would say the past 4 months, let's say, I've been shooting with the 85 1.2. Ooh. And it's a luxury to be able to shoot with that for sure.
Sure.
I didn't think it'd be something that I would be shooting with, in lieu of a 70 to 200.
Yeah.
But for instance, for the gorillas and the chimps in Uganda, you're in a dense jungle, very limited light that comes through, which is good because then you don't get necessarily that harsh light environment, but it's also very dark. And that's where the 1.2, it makes a huge difference in terms of capturing a moving subject or a gorilla, chimp, whatever it might be, in the dark and still end up with the shot that everyone can be impressed by.
Love that. I love the whole host of lenses. And
yeah, sorry. I think you asked for one.
No. But we definitely, because I know a lot of the viewers are sitting out there, and especially when they're starting out and they're like, well, what's the go-to lens? And you did bring up, and a couple of the guests have talked about the 24-70 as being such a strong lens, 70 to 200 is also a strong lens, and then you move into your primes once you know your focal length because you knew like what you're working with.
I think if I had to give remembering that
Yeah.
this is more maybe for advice for beginners, let's
Yeah.
say, if I had to give an advice, I would say the prime lenses, I mean, yes, of course, it gives you such amazing quality, relatively speaking, or like compared to maybe a zoom lens. I would say if you can afford to, just sticking with like one nice prime lens is great as a beginner because it forces you to have to work with only that framing.
Got it.
So it simplifies a little bit of the math in your head when you're
Yeah.
about to shoot. You don't have to think about zooming, but it also forces you to have to see what can I capture within frame, and maybe you're not able to move back or move forward. So then it forces you to have to be creative or shoot a shot that you might not have been aiming to do, but then you realize that shot turns out very nice, or you crop in, you find something later, whatever. So I would actually say if you can afford to, the prime is great, but as you get into it, especially if you go into my world of, let's say, travel photography or filming,
Yeah.
don't be afraid of the zoom lens. You heard from the ones I was recommending. Those zoom lenses are fantastic, especially when you pair it with like a Z6 III or a Z8, Z9. The quality you end up is fantastic, and the zoom just gives you that much more versatility. When you're shooting on the go, traveling, you don't have the time to necessarily switch out lenses when you need to. That gorilla's not going to wait for you. The line's not going to say, okay, we'll take 10 more shots. So trust in the lens quality and enjoy the convenience of having that kind of the very lens so you don't miss a shot.
So talking about lens quality and all of that, what are your main features on your Nikon camera or lens that, let's give me three qualities that you're loving about your gear?
Three qualities about my gear.
Whether it be, again, focusing or whatever it is,
Yeah.
what are the three things that just, you sold on?
Let's see. So from a film side, because that's been my focus for the past 2 years, let's say, I would say the fact that I can shoot raw 12-bit log format of whatever I am internally processed in the camera, that's such a luxury because especially as I mentioned, traveling, you want to travel somewhat light, or you have to throw some things out of the bag so you can make some sacrifice to go on the shoots. The fact that I can film in 4K, 6K, even up to 8K in different modes within the camera body itself, I'm talking specifically for the Z9, Z8, or the Z6 III, that is such a powerful thing that it's very underrated. Actually, I don't know if it's underrated, but it is something I really much enjoy. I would say, oh man, two others, because right now it's all on the film side. I'm going to get some dead air here as I think about this.
No, I mean, again, some of the guys that talked about the focusing on the newer cameras, especially with the newer lenses, seem to be a little bit sharper, faster. I mean, there's the autofocus with eye. Do you ever use? How's your autofocus? Are you using autofocus or manual focus?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, fair enough, and I'll just kind of lean into that a bit. I've been shooting a lot. I've actually been trusting the camera a lot more.
Yeah.
So practice what you preach, I say. But I've been actually shooting in full box autofocus at times for even wildlife, people in different scenarios. I've actually just said, you know what, kind of like the Jesus take the wheel type thing, and let's see how it goes. And honestly, there's very few times where it's failed me for what I'm trying to capture.
Brilliant.
So yeah, these cameras are really, really capable. And so that takes a lot of the headache out for me in terms of how I film. It's been really good for low light.
Okay.
I would say, I think on my so I was just in Colombia for the last couple weeks of January.
Yeah.
And there's a few areas where you're shooting almost at like nocturnal animals. So it's really tough to kind of shoot them in broad daylight. And there's the animal's called a tapir, is how they pronounce it.
Yeah.
I would just say tapir, but tapir.
Tapir, yeah.
And we went all the way to this remote area to search for them. And for 2 days, we didn't see a single one out in the wild.
No way.
And then out of nowhere, late at night, it just showed up right up to the lodge that we're staying at. And it just went right up to the door. It was very, very friendly and low light. So I think I was shooting at 50 to 60,000 ISO.
Love it.
And the shots are great. And the video quality is great. So I would say the low light shooting capability is fantastic. That's only two, I think. Or maybe I get three.
We got the autofocus.
That's
We've
right,
got we tick them off.
Yeah.
But and that's the interesting thing with regards to the cameras. There's so many features on the camera that it's mind-boggling. With regards to, are you changing any of the shortcuts on your camera for quicker function control?
Yeah, that's. I feel like, especially, I think as a beginner, don't worry about it. Just get comfortable, point and shoot as much as you can, get the shots, work with it. As you definitely get more comfortable with the camera, shortcuts it's a must.
Yeah.
So I basically have all the buttons that are available for me doing something, programmed to various things, whether it's like manual, different, like changing the different focus modes, or let's say manual overriding the focus I'm in. Switching from cropping from like a FX mode to a DX. So I use virtually everything for some function, but this is where I can't give great advice because everyone's different. It just depends what you shoot, what's your comfort level.
Yeah, it's your advice. So talking about that, we're going to need a couple more tips.
Yeah.
You've got beginners, you're going to tip 2, am I right?
Yeah.
And then now advanced. Guys that are shooting, potentially what keeps you inspired, or just something for the guys out there that are a little bit more advanced. They know their shutter speeds, apertures, ISOs, and they're just needing to break through.
In terms of like a very practical advice, I would say, well, for aspiring, let's say, videographers, and I'm still very much early in that journey, but I think one of the gear that I invested in that's really, really helpful is an ND filter. So if you're able to especially get like a variable ND filter, basically they're like sunglasses for your camera, so it just darken the amount of, it limits the amount of light that comes in, or it allows you to basically shoot in certain settings when you're filming, so you don't have to adjust from the proper settings. I'm trying to think of like a proper way to say it, but basically you buy these filters and it's a lifesaver. It allows you to shoot at the best settings when you're out and about, and so that saved me a bunch of times in terms of now that I'm getting into more like YouTube style content, vlogs, or anything in between, having something that still feels very cinematic or professional requires certain settings on your camera. So if you can get an ND filter, I feel like that's a must-have if you're getting into film. In terms of other kind of advice I would give for more advanced, the only thing I can think of, because it's related to what I'm going to be presenting on, it's more for photographers, where I just wish more photographers would be comfortable exploring the video side of things, and vice versa. But just remember, especially if you have some of these Nikon cameras that they're hybrid, right? You can, with a flip of a switch, you go from photo to video mode. A lot of us, especially me included, we've gone our whole passion, pursuit, our journey only in one mode, and just neglecting the other side of things. And I feel like you're missing out on a huge, powerful, equipment, capabilities, storytelling tools, if you just get comfortable switching for a few moments, record, and become a beginner, essentially. So don't be afraid to feel like maybe that's the good advice. If you're an advanced person, don't be afraid, or you should feel like you're a beginner again, and you should always feel like you're learning something. So let's say if you're very, very mature in your field, then why not go ahead and try getting into video? Just try a few things. Feel that feeling of being new at something and raw at something, and also feel that feeling that you can still learn, which is, I think, important for all of us, so we're not so rigid.
Got it. Love it. So tell me, last 2 questions.
Sure.
Post-production.
Yeah.
How much do you put into post-production? How much do you get right in camera?
I spend just the right amount of time on post-production. I wish. I spend way too much, I would say. But I'm also equally passionate about the post-production phase of things as compared to like the shooting side. They're equally like my passion areas. Post-production, that's where I feel like you can really make something your own, especially in the video side of things, I realize, but even in the photography side. You're adding the creative flavoring, the touches to whatever you shot out in the field, and trying to find a way of what speaks to you in the moment. There's a difference between what you see in the moment when you're shooting and like whatever caught your eye, and then there's what you see in front of your screen, and realizing once you have the time to digest it, what can it turn into? And it can go in any number of directions. So to me, I get very passionate about that process, and there's so much to learn within that area. So I think, unfortunately, I'm very much one of those that spends way too much time. I'm a perfectionist in many ways, which means I execute at a slower pace than others, but I'm usually proud of whatever I put out. Important. It's important, but there's always trade-offs, and I think I'm learning more and more that you don't have to do everything perfectly, and sometimes it's better just get something out there. So my answer is a bit vague because it just depends where you are in that.
Yeah.
If you're in the world where you have the flexibility or you have the time, like
Yeah.
time is not an issue for you, or you have to juggle and you have to get something done before the money runs out, things like that, I would say spend as much time and treat it almost the same way you treat shooting, going out in the field and shooting. It's an art of its own, and some people end up only going one area. Why not, again, just like we said, go into photo and video, why not also just treat the post-production the same way you treat, the actual shooting or the production?
I love that. That's the thing with those of you that are out there, there's no right or wrong answer with regards to that. If you get it right, if you enjoy the process and in the post-production, it's part of your art form, and we're artists ultimately. And so that's your style, that's what you do, and that's your process. So I do really, I like it that you put that across there, because a lot of time people are like all about in-camera and no post-production because it's not real photography. But what is real photography? Photography is an art form, and it's an expression of what you're seeing or what you're experiencing. So really great answers. So then we're nearly up. I can see the time's running through. I wanted to ask you on the, I've got some quick fire questions I'm going to ask, but I just want to give the audiences your social media handle again one more time, so go for it if you don't mind.
Sure thing. So it's Yobel Prize, one word. It's like Nobel Prize, but with a Y. You can find me on Instagram and especially YouTube. Follow me 10 times if you can, and like every video and all of that, but yeah, Yobel Prize.
I love it. Okay, so now, questions. Ready for this?
Yes.
Okay, DSLR or mirrorless?
Mirrorless.
Natural light or artificial light?
Natural.
Have you ever used artificial in your shots?
Yeah, actually, I mean, as I've been doing more videography, I've learned the importance of lighting.
Cool.
And I did a trip over the summer where I just did about 60 interviews where I packed 3 cameras, tripods, lighting, and everything, getting all the different angles. So I had a crash course in that. And, even when I film for YouTube now, as I'm in front of the camera, I realize the importance of having the key lights and everything else properly done. But natural light is still my go-to. I mean, I'm a travel photographer. I want to shoot whatever is there, and then you compensate.
Fair that. Tripod or gimbal?
Handheld. But
that was part of the question.
I would say I've used tripod more often.
Yeah.
Gimbals are fantastic, but it just takes a lot of time to set up. So it just depends if you have the time. If it's not improvised, go with the gimbal for sure. But for me, I would say tripod is enough.
Okay. And stabilized or handheld?
Handheld and then digitally stabilized. These software programs are fantastic. The built-in stabilizations within the camera, they do the trick, and so you can just tweak it a little bit more as long as you're not going crazy. But yeah,
I'm
handheld.
so impressed. I'm hybrid shooting, and the 5-axis stabilization within the camera is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm loving it. And then, like you said, sometimes we don't have the time to put everything together and go from there.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty much it from my side. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It was absolutely awesome seeing you.
I would say if there's one thing I would end with, just quickly, not for anyone, but for you, Stephen, I think the first workshop I ever did with Nikon here was your workshop.
Really?
So
No
it's
way.
just kind of fun to be back together. I know you're in a different country. Hopefully you'll move out here or something. But
Definitely.
so a pleasure, and I learned a lot from you. You were part of that. Staying inspired is, attend these workshops, watch videos, and those are the ways to keep the spark going, let's say.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely meet other photographers, see where they are in their journey, learn from them. Now
thanks.
talking to you again, it's a little memory lane.
It's unbelievable when I saw him come through, and obviously saw your list. But your work is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, since the moment I met you with regards to you saw some of your photographs, I remember all those years ago, and it was just beautiful. So I love how you keep staying inspired, and you can learn from anyone and everyone. I mean, it's one of the things that I talk about when I'm doing my workshops and those kind of things, is that you never know when inspiration is going to come and where it's going to come from. So I listen to anyone, beginning, advanced. I just try and gather all of that up. But anyway, I see we're running out of time, so I'm just going to say thank you for joining us now, and we'll see you again soon.